All right, that's Barry Cooper, a one-time Texas drug agent described by his former boss as one of the best narcotics officers in the country. Now, the former straight-laced lawman is using his expertise to show drug users how to conceal their stash and fool canines every time, at least this summer. Barry, I think a lot of folks are sort of shaking their heads. Why? Why go from being a great narcotics officer to doing this?
Maturity, logic, reason, and compassion would tell any logical, reasonable, and compassionate adult that it is unreasonable for 10 men to break into a house with semi-automatic weapons and raid gear and drag mommy and daddy to jail, orphaning the kids. That's unreasonable, and it's unsafe for the marijuana users of this nation.
But Barry, I got to say, it seems like you're not really solving that problem. Why not protest that problem? Why not talk about bad cops? Why not talk about unfair investigations instead of enabling people who may be becoming increasingly dependent on drugs and helping them to continue that habit, which I think most people agree is not good?
Well, no, most people do not agree that smoking marijuana is not good. In fact, 14 states have passed medical marijuana laws.
Well, that's a very different thing. A medical marijuana law is a very different thing from teaching, kids and teenagers and other people who may be older how to get away from the cops and continue their drug habit.
I think the way to answer that is we're 200 years old, our country is, and we've had bad policy in the past. We didn't allow women to vote at one time, bad policy. We had alcohol prohibition, bad policy. We had slavery, where if a slave escaped, they were subject to being beaten. And this is no different. The war on drugs, especially marijuana, is a bad policy.
Barry has a question for you. Go ahead, Barry.
Barry, you're reminding me more of what NAMBLA does with sex offenders. NAMBLA teaches the child rapists how to do it, how to get away with it. You're teaching drug thugs how not to get caught. You're not just teaching the user. And it's not a protest. You're making money. You're exploiting law-abiding citizens.
No, you're wrong. No, you're absolutely wrong. I'm pouring the money back into my efforts to get marijuana legalized, and there is a big difference in somebody that molests a child and somebody that smokes a joint. In fact, we're kicking child molesters out of prison at an alarming rate to make room for the 750,000 pot smokers a year.
You're also teaching the big dealers tricks, and you don't differentiate. You're not just teaching the small-time user. And
absolutely, the dealers.
Need to be honest about this. You're teaching the bad guys, and you know the correlation between marijuana use
not bad
and
guys.
crime. So you're making crime worse too, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
No, you should be ashamed for those type of statements when the crimes Americans are interested in are the crimes against persons and properties. If we legalize marijuana, if somebody uses a drug to the point it causes them to commit a crime, we have laws in place for that. They'll still go to jail for robbery, rape, burglary, and theft, even if these substances are made legal.
I want to go to the good doctor. What do you think is going on with Barry here?
Well, I think it sounds to me like somewhere along the line you got very disenchanted and disillusioned with the system, and it's your way now of fighting the system by going against it rather than by continuing to work within it. Yes, the laws may need to be changed, but there's a way of doing that where you continue to uphold them and continue to be a role model for all the children and teenagers out there, so that you're not giving the message it's okay to break the law if you get away with it.
Raul?
Rosa Parks had to break the law.
Oh, stop.
For the law
Are you comparing yourself to Rosa Parks?
Totally
Stop.
Absolutely not, but if you'll let me talk, I can explain.
Go ahead.
Right.
Okay. Slaves were subjected to beating. It was a law that if they escaped, the cops could beat them. A marijuana smoker, if caught with marijuana, goes to prison and faces being raped or stabbed. It's serious.
Well, maybe they shouldn't be smoking marijuana in the first place, and then they don't put themselves in that position.
Marijuana was made illegal in 1937 by a man that testified in front of the Congress saying it made white women seek relationships with Negroes.
Oh,
all right. Well, that's ridiculous, obviously. But Barry,
that is ridiculous.
The focus is why don't you put your focus on making marijuana legal instead of putting your focus on helping kids to get away from the cops and hide their pot.
Working within the system instead of fighting the system and going against it.
Bridget,
and what about
we've
police
had
officers?
drug
What about the
reformation.
chance?
Hold on, Barry.
Barry, what about the chance that police officers might use Barry's video and say, hey, guys, they're on to us about this, so, you know, people might now stash the marijuana way up in the dash.
Yeah.
Maybe
No,
we
no,
should
no.
start looking there.
My video gives tips that are impossible to counter, such as go in the rain, such as spraying your tires with fox urine.
Wait, Raul, really quick thought, really quick.
Well, it's not quick, but two things. Number one, drugs have been linked to terrorist financing. Two, drugs have killed hundreds of millions of people.
That's nuts.
How is this
That's
guy
a lie.
no different than somebody
That's
advocating to build a
propaganda.
bomb?
That is
for a terrorist
propaganda that
transaction?
Fox
All right,
puts out.
Barry,
Drugs are
everybody,
consistently used for
we're going to
terrorist
have to leave it
financing.
right there.
Everyone
Thank
knows
you very
that.
much, you guys.